Hiya Chris, first of all apologies for the delay in the recap being posted. I've just been sidetracked with one thing after another since the festive period. So anyway, apologies out the way, onto the business end of things. Just a quick recap to confirm, or to reaffirm the key points that we covered. Whilst the last session was geared around improving fundamentals 1 and 3, there was a tendency to just miss hit at the odd shot, bottoming out behind the golf ball, due largely to the picture that you see on the top right, where although we're getting the left knee much more forward than we used to do, we used to really hyperextend that left knee. There was very little hip slide. We were posting up very early, and the upper axis was translating back, and the head coming off the wall. What we've got now is a situation where there's much more linear movement, centre of the hips moving forward nicely, left knee getting out in front of the left ankle, creating some axis tilt here as you're coming into impact. The handle location is still back, and on occasion the tendency could be, or is, to get the shaft sitting more vertically than we see it on this occasion. So shaft a little bit too vertical, a little bit of scooping going on, excuse me with that graphic, through impact, upper axis translating back. So we wanted to tighten up the radius of the swing and look at why that was occurring during impact. So when we looked at things at P6 was a little bit too far back, if you will. This left arm not advanced enough as the shaft gets parallel with the ground, creating a release point that's a little bit too far behind the golf ball. When we look at it from down the line, we start to see some of the reasons why. From a setup where we could do with softening that posture up a little bit, it's a little bit too Adam Scott, if you will. So have a little look at Mike or Grant or Charlie on YouTube and try and create just a little bit softer lines at setup. There's a tendency to get a little bit too arched in the base of the spine and a little bit too straight up and down with the base of your neck. So just soften things up, drop the chin a little bit, pull the pelvis in a little bit, etc, etc. As you take the club back, the takeaway wasn't as good as it has been in the past, but nowhere near as bad as it has been in the past, so we know what to do on that. Accumulator 4 doesn't load as much as we'd like to, and as a result we have an appearance at the top that we're below plane. From there's a tendency to shallow out the plane even more. You can see the butt of the club lowering, very much under plane at P6. Hands should be up on the higher line, the hands should be up on elbow plane, with the club more on hand plane. You can see they're very much underneath it, still too square, still too shut off with the shoulders at P6. Shoulders should be squaring up more. And from there, if you don't make the move through impact like we see here, where we get accumulator 3 releasing early and aggressively, and we get accumulator 2, or the flying wedge, getting dumped, then you do run the risk of hitting a lot of well-struck shots that are pushed massively to the right or hook to the left. So one thing leads to the other, really. So what we have to do to tidy up and tighten up P6, we've got to also look at what's happening with the path of the hands from P4 to P5. You can see that this elbow gets behind us a little bit too much at P6, club stuck in behind the hands, and from there we're very shallow, we're very underneath plane, and we've got to release everything to turn the corner down at the bottom of the golf swing. So first thing we looked at was what the hands and the arms should do from P4 to P5, and we wanted to feel like the butt of the club was working a little bit more out towards the target line, as we see here, introducing a little bit of outward force with the arms, getting the club to line up nicely with the hands, as opposed to the butt of the club working down quite severely. So P4 to P5, initially the feeling was to get the butt of the club working out towards the target line more, feeling that the right elbow is getting much more in front of you during the downswing. You can see there accumulator 1 expands nicely, moving the butt of the club away from the shoulder. So the butt of the club is brought down by the releasing or the expanding of accumulator 1, as opposed to, when looking at it from face on, the axis of the shoulder turn dropping back, the right shoulder dropping. You can see the eye line getting compromised here as the axis of the shoulder turn drops back. Accumulator 1 isn't really getting expanded enough at that stage, so hanging on to 1 a little bit. Too much downward, you can see here, butt of the club working down from P4 to P5, which is fine, but there has to be a little bit of outward movement as well. Remember, if the arms are in 30 or 40 on the way back at P3, the arms only need to be in 20 to 15 at P5, so we need to get a little bit more outward movement from the top. So we keep the elbow in front of us, we work the butt of the club out towards the baseline a little bit more, and that in turn steepens the shaft angle a little bit and gets it to line up with the hands more at P6. We then talked about trying to really tighten the circumference of the swing, and this is when viewed from face on. We can see that as accumulator 1 expands, the right shoulder doesn't drop as severely. Accumulator 2 is maintained for longer. And P6, remember the feeling we had was that we wanted P6 to be as low and as advanced as possible. When I look at Charlie Wee's P6, what I'm seeing is a left arm that's more advanced and a shaft that's lower. A sign that accumulator 1 has released more, accumulator 4 has moved sooner and quicker and for longer, and accumulator 2 has been maintained. So that was the key sort of piece that we left with the lesson. We want to feel that P6 is more advanced, is lower, and you can see there now that that right elbow is getting nicely out in front of you as you get into your delivery position. In regards to the top of the backswing, this is just food for thought. What I would like to see is this leg action softened up, and we're not too bad there actually. We've got some side bend in the pelvis, but when we look at it at the start of your session, we get rid of these lines and we take you back to P4. You can see that the hips tend to get a little bit too level, and that's not making it easy for you to get accumulator 4 to travel as far as it could. I'd like to see you looking a little bit more like Troy at that point. I think Troy's a better model for you than maybe Charlie and Grant. P6 advanced and lower, and then from there you're going to swing down, hit the shot. We compare the two. Left arm more in line with the right thigh on the lower picture. Shaft also a little bit more in line with the hands when viewed from down the line, requiring less throwaway of the shaft as you come into impact. Resulting in a slightly better move through the golf ball, but be all and end all, tighten up P6, improve P7, which is what we've done on this one. Tightened up P6, improve P7. Solidly struck shots that drew more, as opposed to slight miss hits that were pushing, overdrawing, and the occasional pull in there as well. So keep the club moving, tighten the circumference of the swing, keep the butt of the club moving out towards the baseline a little bit more from P4 to P5, and get that right elbow nicely out in front of you. Good luck with it. I look forward to working with you again in the coming months. Well done.